Okay, we are going to finish up the 6 traits of writing table of contents on this particular video. I'm going to very quickly review the first 3 traits. The first trait was the ideas trait. The purpose of the ideas trait is to brainstorm. You want to come up with as many possible ideas as you can, because never, ever, ever are the first 2 or 3 ideas going to be the best ones to write about. It's only when you dig deep that you find the real nugget that's worth writing on. So the ideas trait is very important. Then you're going to work on the organization. This is organization for the reader, not necessarily organization for the writer. And third is you're going to focus on your own voice. You're going to let your personality come through in your writing, but you're going to make sure that your personality is appropriate for the purpose of the writing assignment. If it's a formal writing assignment, you want to make sure that the voice is formal. And if you're just writing for a peer, you want to make sure that it's not formal, but it's very informal and relaxed and conversational. Okay, so let's move on to these other writing traits. So the 4th trait, and I will just tell you right away that this is my particular trait that I focus on the most. I am a vocabulary junkie. And so this particular trait is called the word choice trait of writing. And you notice that this aligns with the revision. Okay, so word choice, when you are working in the draft phase, you're just getting ideas on paper. You're really not focusing a whole lot on vocabulary or redundancy or anything like that. You're just getting the ideas down. But when you get into the revision, this is where word choice becomes key. And to be quite frank with you, this is when it's very obvious if a student turns in a draft or if a student turns in a revised copy. Because in a draft, students rarely pay attention to word choice. It's only in the relook or the revision of the paper that they notice when they have made word choice blunders and they correct them. So you can kind of tell maybe that word choice is a pretty big, important trait to me, because I have almost twice as many characteristics on the word choice side as I do on any of the other traits. So the first characteristic of the word choice trait, and I'm going to teach you a little bit of French here, is what's called le mot juste. Looks like le mot juste, but it's pronounced le mot juste. Le mot means the word, and juste means perfect. So it means identifying the perfect word. And I will tell you that in the draft phase, you are rarely interested in identifying the perfect word. You're just trying to come up with any word, and that's great for a draft. But in the revision process, you want the perfect word. And I will tell you right now, if you have not heard from other students who have had me before, that get, got, and things are never, ever the perfect word. They are way too vague. So let me see if I can give you a quick example. I could say that yesterday I went to the store and I got some milk. Now, got there, yes, it works for the draft, but really, did I got milk? No, I probably bought milk. I purchased milk. I have had students in the class say that perhaps I stole the milk. All 3 of those verbs, bought, purchase, and stole, are much better words than the word got. But let me give you another example. Let's say that a few weeks from now, when you go to take the grammar test, and you sit down and you take the test and you studied very hard for it, and when you get the results back, you learned that you got an A. Now, did you really get an A? My guess is no. Now, if we use the same synonyms for get or got that we did in my previous example, I guarantee that you did not purchase an A for me, you did not buy an A from me, and there's no possible way you could steal an A from me. So those synonyms don't work. But really, what did you mean? You didn't get an A on that test. If it was in my class, you earned that A. So in this example, earned is a much better word than got. So I will just tell you, my eye is automatically drawn to get, got, and things, and if I see it, it's an automatic deduction on your paper, because what that tells me is that you're really not willing to give thought to coming up with le mot juste. You're just willing to go with whatever your draft word was, and that's never appropriate for a final revision. Okay, so that is le mot juste. Now, what is inherent in le mot juste is basically what the next two characteristics are. And so what they are is you want to make sure that you use specific nouns, and you want to make sure that you use vivid verbs. So get and got are never vivid verbs. Bought, purchase, earned, stole, those would be vivid. I can see those in action. Get and got, I really have no idea what the writer is trying to convey with those verbs. Specific nouns, things is never a specific noun. Just look around where you're sitting right now while watching this video, and how many things do you see? My guess is you see several. But if you're really specific, you can come up with some very concrete nouns that if you were to use those, I would have a definite image in my mind of what it is you're trying to convey. So le mot juste deals with specific nouns and vivid verbs. The other aspect of le mot juste is you want to make sure to use as often as possible what's called the active voice. And we will spend a whole lot more time on this as the semester and the year goes on. But just so that you know, active voice is when the subject is doing the action. And you want to do that because it's very bold and it makes your writing much less complex. It's very clear and understandable if you use active voice. If you use passive voice, your writing is very, it's difficult for the reader to understand what you're trying to say. And quite frankly, you're using way too many words if you use active voice, when you use passive voice, whereas if you use active voice, you're using just the right amount of words to say what it is you're trying to convey. And then the last two kind of go together, and they sound like they're contradicting one another, but really they're not. And so the last two characteristics of word choice is you want to make sure that you elaborate where you need to elaborate. That reverts back to your pacing. You want to make sure that you are giving lots and lots of details on the parts of the writing that are significant, but you want to make sure that you eliminate details on the part of the writing that is insignificant. The other aspect where eliminate comes in is you never want to have any kind of redundancy. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and write that in here. Redundancy in terms of words. So when you are revising your essay, you want to make sure, are you using the same word over and over and over again? You will be surprised that if you really pay attention to that, how often you will find that you've used the same word again and again and again. But redundancy is also in terms of ideas. You do not want to beat your reader over the head with what it is you're trying to tell them. Assume that your reader is fairly intelligent. You want to make sure that your idea is clearly presented, but you don't have to state the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, so that is word choice, and yes, it's incredibly important, and it is something that I really focus on a lot. The other step in the revision process, the other trait that we're going to focus on, is what's called sentence fluency. Whoops. And this is where you need your writing to be clear and concise, and you need it to flow. That's what fluency is. Fluency is flow. It needs to be easy for the reader to read. And so the way that we help with sentence fluency, so the first characteristic is that it flows. And the way that you help your writing to flow is what's going to involve the next two traits. So first of all, you want to use a variety of lengths, of sentence lengths. So that means that you want to have some short sentences, you want to have some medium-sized sentences, and you want to have some long sentences. And grammar comes into play here. So for those of you who have had grammar in the past, you will know that your short sentences are going to be your simple sentences. Your medium sentences are probably going to be your simple complex subject, simple compound verb, perhaps even compound sentences. Your long sentences are going to be your complex sentences, and you need to know when to use those in order to get the point across. And then the other aspect of sentence fluency is you want to make sure that you have a variety, of sentence beginnings. Typically, we tend to write our sentences subject, noun, verb, and you know that's okay. It's okay to do that 75% of the time. But you know, you want to make sure you don't do it 95% of the time. Your writing becomes very boring, very static. The reader does not want to continue to read, and so we're going to work on that. We're going to work on how to use our grammar skills in order to vary our sentence beginnings, in order to make our reading exciting, in order for the reader to want to read more. And then the last example of sentence fluency is you want to make sure that you use transitions. You do not want to jump from one topic to another. You need to transition. Trans means across, and you need to provide a word bridge from one idea to the other. Definitely you need transitions from one paragraph to another. Quite often you need to use transitions from one sentence to another. And we do a lot of work on helping us develop good transitions so that our writing flows smoothly. Okay, the last trait of writing, which is meshed with the proofread or the edit step of writing, is what's called conventions. And I will tell you that conventions is just a very fancy word for you want to make sure that you have proper spelling, you want to make sure that you have proper grammar, and you want to make sure that you have proper punctuation. And so the entire purpose of this grammar class essentially is to teach you the conventions trait. But what I want you to be aware of is that the conventions trait is only 1/6 of good writing. You really need to have the other 5 traits of writing in order for your writing to be really stellar and stand out and for the reader to want to read it. So very quickly, let me see if I can summarize for you the 6 traits of writing, and then we are going to spend several weeks focusing on each trait individually. So you have your pre-writing step of writing. That is what you're going to do before you actually put pen to paper to start your essay or whatever your assignment is. And the trait that is associated with that is the ideas trait. You are going to brainstorm, come up with lots of ideas, narrow the focus, and work on sensory details. The next step is you're going to draft. You're just going to get your ideas very quickly on paper. To do that, you're going to focus on the organizational trait of writing. You're going to think about what kind of logical order are you going to put it in, come up with a great introductory sentence and paragraph so that your reader wants to read more, and you're going to focus on correct pacing, spending lots of time on details that are significant, little time on details that are insignificant. You're going to work on adding your own personality or voice to your writing so that it is engaging for the reader, and you're going to make it appropriate for whatever the purpose of the writing assignment is. The next step, one that my guess is most of us have overlooked, but we're not going to anymore, is the revision step. And in that step of writing, you're going to really focus hard on word choice. You're going to make sure that you have picked le mot juste. You're going to focus on very specific nouns, vivid verbs that make your reading come alive. You're going to write in active voice so that it is not confusing for your reader. You're going to elaborate where you need to, eliminate and not have any redundancy. You're going to focus on sentence fluency so that your writing flows, and you're going to do that by using a variety of sentence lengths as well as sentence beginnings. You're going to have transitions from one thought to another. And last but not least, you are going to use the conventions of good grammar, good spelling, and good punctuation so that the reader clearly knows what it is you are trying to express.